Alright, we're getting ready to start a four-part series on sentence patterns. And as we go through the sentence patterns for your grade, there are a few things to keep in mind. The first question that we're going to answer is, why do we go over sentence patterns and why are they important? And there are three main reasons why we do this. The first one is that they often lead emphasis to key words and or concepts. Right? So as you're writing or you're going through reading, if you can target sentence patterns or you use them in writing, they will help gear your reader toward what's really important in your writing. The second reason is they help the author develop style and personal voice. If you have a certain author that you really like reading the things that they write, and it's not just because of the content, but it's the way they write, often it's their use of sentence patterns that's drawing you in as the reader. And then the last reason is they provide a sense of variety, making the reader more engaged while reading. Right? So it's a much more engaging style. And that's key as well. No one likes to read something where every sentence is really short or every sentence is really long and difficult to understand. We use these sentence patterns to help you create variety in writing, and it makes your writing both easier to read and more interesting. Okay, we're going to be talking about a special type of phrase known as a gerund phrase. In our last video we discussed the difference between a clause and a phrase. And in this case, we're looking again at a collected group of words that does not have a subject actively doing a verb. In order to know what a gerund phrase is, though, first we need to know what is a gerund. In a gerund we have a verb that has an ing ending on it, and it's being used as a noun. Right? So a lot of words we do things like that. For example, the word text we turn into texting. A gerund phrase consists of a gerund and all the related words surrounding it. So if we look at examples, swimming in the lake, right? In this case, we have swimming is our gerund, right? And then our words modifying it, or our related words, are in the lake. Okay? Or rising with the sun. Okay? We have rising is our gerund. Right? We've taken the verbs of swim and rise. We've added ing to them, right? And we've added related words to them. In this case, finishing the job. Okay, we've taken the verb finish, we've added ing to it, right? And we have related words. Okay, the last one, moving in a completely new way. Again, we have the verb move, we've added ing to it to make it a gerund, and we've added related words. And if we look at these are all being used as nouns. Okay, they're being used as things or topics. Right? For swimming in the lake, that's a topic. That is a noun. We don't know what about swimming in the lake. Right? So it's a phrase. The idea has not been completed. Rising with the sun. We don't know who or what is rising with the sun. We just have the gerund and the words that are related to it, making it a phrase. Finishing the job. Right? We don't know what about finishing the job. So it's not a complete idea, but it does have the gerund and some related words. And again, moving in a completely new way. Moving is our gerund, and again, we don't know what about moving in a completely new way. Okay, now that we've talked about the importance of sentence patterns, let's take a look at our first junior sentence pattern here. Sentence pattern number 1. We're going to be taking a look at the gerund phrase used as a subject or as a direct object. Okay, quick review back to something we've covered already in class. The direct object is who or what is receiving the action of the verb. So if you're looking at a sentence and you're trying to figure out what is the direct object, ask that question. Who or what is receiving the action of the verb? Alright, our first sentence type is using that same gerund phrase that we've already talked about in the previous video, but we're using it as the subject of a sentence. So let's look at the first example. Dancing in the rain can be fun. Or the first thing that we do is we look for the verb and we say, okay, the verb is can be, and we say, well, what can be fun? Right? Is it dancing? Well, not just dancing, it's dancing in the rain. Right? So we have our gerund dancing. Okay? In the rain, right, is modifying it, and it's helping tell you what type of dancing. But altogether, this gerund phrase, dancing in the rain, is what can be fun. Right? So it's the subject. It answers the question, what can be fun? All right. Example number 2. Driving a car takes concentration. Again, back to finding subjects and verbs. What's our verbs? It's takes. we're going to ask, who or what takes concentration? Well, driving a car. And again, it's not just driving, but it's driving a car. So it's more than just the gerund, it's a phrase. It's that group of related words that helps give us enough information about driving to be a subject. And driving a car is what takes concentration. So again, gerund phrase is the subject of the sentence. Third example, washing your face is hygienic. All right, is our linking verb. Okay, we know that something is hygienic. So we say, well, what is hygienic? It's not just washing, it's washing your face. All right, so washing is our gerund. This is our group of related words that go along with it to make the phrase. Washing your face is the subject of the sentence. On the flip side, now our second part of this was the gerund phrase being used as a direct object. And in this case, here are two examples. Paul finished painting the ceiling is one. Again, what is the verb? Someone finished. So finished is our verb. Who or what finished? It was Paul. Paul is the subject. And now in this case we're going to say, well, you know, what did Paul finish? He finished painting the ceiling. Right? Painting the ceiling is receiving the action of the verb finished here. Right? And it just so happens to be a gerund, painting, and some related words, the ceiling, to complete the phrase. So in this sentence, Paul finished painting the ceiling. The direct object is painting the ceiling. All right? And it just so happens to be gerund phrase. So that was example number 2. This is gerund phrase being used as a direct object.
Amber Nestor, if you're in the building, please come to the main office. Amber Nestor, if you're in the building, please come to the main office right now.
Mrs. Mills. That's probably going to be on the video, so I'll appreciate that. I should probably edit that out, actually. Do you, the second example of a direct object, do you like sailing on the lake? In this case, do like is your verb. We ask, well, who likes? You. You is the subject. Now, to find that direct object again, you know, who or what do you like? Well, you like sailing on the lake. In this case, our gerund, sailing, is joined by some relating words on the lake, right? And that together makes a phrase because it's not a clause. So sailing on the lake is our direct object. All right, our next part that we're going to talk about is gerund phrases as the object of the preposition. That's good. Okay, we're back and we're on to the second sentence pattern, which is gerund phrases being used as the object of the preposition. For review, we already talked about gerund phrases being used as a subject or a direct object, but in this case we're looking at them being used as the object of the preposition. Something to remember, the gerund phrase consists of the gerund in all of its related parts, words, or modifiers. All right, so let's take a look at a few examples here. The first sentence, you might get in trouble for faking an illness to avoid work. And in this case, we have our subject, we have a helping verb and might get. Okay, in trouble is our prepositional phrase, or being used as a direct object. Then we have the phrase for faking an illness to avoid work. Now don't confuse sentence parts here with the sentence function. In this case we have the preposition for, right? Then we have the gerund, faking. Right? And the related words, or the related parts, are an illness to avoid work. So if we look at the overall structure of the sentence and what the purpose is, as a function, this is the preposition, and faking an illness to avoid work, all of that together works to create our object of the preposition. And since it begins, the phrase begins with a gerund, it's our gerund phrase. All right, let's take a look at number 2. And this one, Senior Slivka got promoted for being a great teacher. True story. In this case, we have Senior Slivka as our subject, got promoted as our verb. We have for, which is a preposition, and then the verb be has been turned into being, making it a gerund. Right? And then we have our related words, a great teacher, modifying being. So for being a great teacher creates the preposition and the object of the preposition. And here we have the gerund phrase together acting as the object of the preposition. Let's take a look at one more example. Number 3, I finished the task by staying up all night. And in this case we have our subject I, finish is our verb. The task is what we finish, so it's our direct object. And our direct object is going to be modified by the prepositional phrase, by staying up all night. All right, in this case our preposition is by. We have our gerund, staying. And then up all night is modifying our gerund staying. So together we have a preposition and then a gerund phrase as our object of the preposition. Okay, we're on to sentence pattern number 3 here. And in this case, we're taking a look at infinitive phrases, but we're looking at only one function of them. We're looking at using an infinitive phrase as a direct object in a sentence. Reminder, we talked about this in class, but just to review, an infinitive phrase is a phrase consisting of the word to plus a verb. Right? And we're talking about the verb in its simplest stem form, functioning as a noun, adjective, or an adverb. All right? And when we say stem form, we mean that we're leaving a word like love in its verb form. We're not changing it to loved, loving, none of the different forms. We're going with the simple stem of the verb. For example, I love to work on grammar in class. All right, when we look at this sentence, whether it's true or not, one thing that we need to remember is that we find the verb first. Our verb is love. We ask who or what performed the verb. It's I, so that's our subject. And in order to locate the direct objects, we want to ask the question, who or what is receiving the action of the verb? And in this case, we're looking, what do I love? I love to work. Right? On grammar in class is modifying our infinitive here. It's giving us a little bit more information about it. So all in all, our sentence is I love to work on grammar in class. To work is our infinitive phrase because it has the word to plus the verb in its simplest stem form. All right, let's take a look at a second example. I want to light my English teacher on fire. When I used this example in class, I saw way too much nodding and a few too many smiles. It made me kind of nervous. In this case, we have want is a verb. We ask who wants, it's I again. And what do I want? I want to light. All right, so to light is my infinitive phrase. And my English teacher on fire is the rest of the sentence, and it's helping modify our infinitive phrase to light by giving us more detail and information. Number 3, do you want to ditch class now or later? All right, if we look at this one, we have the verb do want. All right, when we ask who wants, we know that it's you. What do you want? You want to ditch. All right, so when we ask who or what's receiving the verb here, it's to ditch. So that is our infinitive phrase. Again, the word to, the verb in its simplest form, ditch. All right, and class now or later is modifying back to ditch and telling us when it would happen. Okay, so that's the first 3. We're going to go on to the 4th sentence pattern, and then that'll wrap it up for our sentence pattern review. All right, before we get to our last sentence pattern here, we got to review a term, a participle. All right, it is a verb functioning as an adjective. All right, and there are 2 main kinds. There are present participles that typically end in ing. For example, having, working, or talking. And you may look at this and think, oh, that looks similar to some of the words that were gerunds. But remember, the thing that makes it a participle is its function. All right, it's functioning as an adjective, so it's going to be modifying a noun or a pronoun. All right, and that's what's going to make it a participle. Or you can have a past participle that usually ends in ed or en. For example, everyone's favorite right now, frozen, wanted, printed, and given. All right, and of course with the English language there are a few things that are going to throw people off. One of the things that non-native English speakers typically struggle with are exceptions or irregular past participles that don't follow the rules that everything else does. Words such as be, right? When be goes in the past tense, it becomes was or were. Bring, it becomes brought. Arise becomes arose, and come becomes came when it comes to past tense. So for the most part, they're all going to stick to this pattern. Occasionally, you'll have a few words that will be irregular past participles, and there really is no rhyme or method to it. You just have to become familiar enough with the words to understand which ones you're going to use the irregular tense with. Okay, now we're finally on to sentence pattern number 4, our last one that we have to learn. For this sentence pattern, we're looking at introductory or concluding past irregular participial phrases. Sounds like a whole lot, but it's really not that hard. If you remember back to our last clip, we talked about what participles are. So all this is is phrases or groups of words that do not have a subject actively performing a verb. And we're using them in the past tense with an ending that ends in ed or en, right? And then we have some of our irregular verbs that we talked about as well. So something to remember that's important when you're doing your punctuation and writing, you take this phrase and offset it by using commas. Here's some examples. All right, for past, the ground decimated by flash floods is ruined. So if we look at this sentence here, we have our past participle decimated. We've taken the verb decimate and made it past tense. Decimated by flash floods is not a clause, right? There's no subject in this phrase. It's offset by commas. It's actually describing the ground. The ground is what's decimated. Now, since it's describing the ground, remember, a participial is our verb that is acting as an adjective, and that's exactly what this is doing. It's describing the noun, ground, right? And we're saying that it is ruined, so we have our linking verb and our linking verb complement adjective. All right, another example, printed in Old English and bound in rural leather, the new edition of Beowulf was expensive. So if we look at this sentence, all right, we actually have two of our patterns here. We have the past participle, and we have the irregular participle bound, because we've taken bind and turned it into bound in the past tense. And both of these, when we look at the function, this entire phrase right here, printed in Old English and bound in rural leather, that's describing the new edition, or the new edition of Beowulf to be specific. Right? And we are telling the reader in this case that it was expensive. All right, so again, we have a linking verb and a linking verb complement adjective that's describing the addition. All right, our last one. All right, those were how we introduced it. Our last one takes advantage of a concluding past participial phrase. If we look at this one, he remained rooted to the spot, frozen by fear. All right, so in this case, he is our subject. All right. Remained is our past participle. All right, and we've taken the present verb remain and made it past. This is describing or modifying he. He remained rooted to the spot, frozen by fear. And this, again, this is a phrase at the end of the sentence, and it goes all the way back to referring to our subject he. All right, so we're actually describing the subject of the sentence. And again, we've offset the sentence pattern with a comma. All right, so in a nutshell, that's it. Don't make it too hard. Remember, our participle phrases are adjectives. They're describing or modifying nouns or pronouns. And that's it.